Good afternoon, everyone. How are y'all doing? You guys can do better than that. How are you guys? Good? Are you enjoying the Simply LA event today? Isn't it fantastic? Are you staying cool? I mean, you're all cool, obviously, which is why you're here to listen in on this incredible panel. The whole conversation today has been about doing what you love. And these three ladies beside me are clearly following their own path in very unique and different ways. So the panel today is about creating your voice and making an impact. So a lot of social impact work that you all are doing. We'll get into that, but I would love it if you could each just introduce yourself and give us a little snippet about the work that you do. Sure. Why don't we start with Logan? Sorry, we can start with Monique. We can start with Monique.
Stay ready and get ready. Okay.
She's over there drinking beverages.
That's so good. Hi, I'm Logan Browning. I am from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm an actress / hoping to be everything I can possibly be in this lifetime.
Yes.
I am currently on a show called Dear White People. It's on Netflix. It came out April 28th. And we just got renewed.
It's like the hottest thing right now. Oh. If you don't know, you need to know.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
It's a blessing to be a part of, just because it's such a poignant but funny, inclusive show. And we just got renewed for season 2, so I'm really excited about that. I'm really excited to be here, to hear these awesome women speak. I work a lot with young women, mentorship, and also looking into helping the homeless with some of my other endeavors.
Wonderful. Nastia.
Okay, so my background is gymnastics. Both my parents were actually gymnasts. My dad competed at the '88 Olympic Games, won 2 gold and 2 silver medals. My mom was a rhythmic gymnast and a world champion. So as the only child, I was kind of born to be a gymnast, I guess. But they never really forced or pushed me into being a gymnast. They wanted me to find something that I loved and that I had a passion for, and that was gymnastics. And I was very fortunate enough to achieve a lifelong dream at 18 years old of representing Team USA at the Olympics and winning 5 Olympic medals. And
no big deal.
Thanks.
Amazing.
And that seems like a century ago already. It's crazy, but at the time it was kind of scary achieving that lifelong dream at 18 and then kind of thinking like, what now? I have the rest of my life to live. And so very similar, I now am focusing a lot on inspiring the next generation of women, especially in sports, and started a business, which I'm sure we'll maybe get into. But that's kind of my background, and I'm super excited to be here. So
thank you for being here. And last but certainly not least, Monique.
That's gorgeous. I love you both. So similar to what you were saying as far as achieving a dream, sort of being the pathway to finding your purpose. For me, I am an actress, and I'm probably most known for High School Musical. But at that time, what was interesting is that I felt the loneliest, the furthest away from my core and my center and who I am, the more exposure, or the more exposed I was. And so when it was over, I felt very empty and lost, and like, what's going to happen next? I've achieved this dream, and obviously it's not the pinnacle of what I want for my career, but I think it's really it's very comforting to feel aspirational. It's very comforting to have your goals and your dreams out in front of you. But when you actually catch them, it's very frightening. And so after High School Musical, I transitioned and started to get into youth empowerment and really asking myself, why? What is this platform for? And if I don't feel good enough, if I don't feel like I have enough resources with everything that I've achieved to be able to do good, then how can young people possibly carry the torch to be the next generation of leaders? And so at that time, I started an organization called Gimme Mo to empower and inspire young people. And then I became the first ever United Nations Youth Champion for the International Year of Youth. And I funded a 6-month global tour where I traveled to 24 countries to understand firsthand what young people experience and face globally, and it changed my life. And now when I go to auditions and I don't hear anything, I don't care, because I know that our gifts will make room for us, and our steps are already ordered, and I just bring so much more purpose and a sense of groundedness into everything that I do.
Amazing. What a powerhouse panel, huh? Are you excited? I'm so thrilled to be here. My name is Laurel Mintz. I run an agency here in Los Angeles called Elevate My Brand. We focus on digital strategy and event production. Been working with Sarah and the team for some time now, and we do a lot of work in the nonprofit world as well, which is why I think this was a fortuitous panel for us to all connect on. So are you guys ready to jump in? Yeah. Are you guys ready? Yes? Wonderful. So we're talking about defining your brand voice, and you've each kind of defined your voice multiple times over your careers. What was the moment that you realized that you actually were your brand? Was there a poignant moment in time where you realized, I am a brand and I have to define my voice? Your origin story, so to speak.
I don't remember who I heard say this. I wish I could quote them, but I actually heard someone say you should be constantly redefining yourself, and that maybe you shouldn't be limiting yourself to one idea. I do understand that we have to hone in on a niche in terms of finding our path and in order to be efficient. But for me, I flow through life. And so if something works for me, I continue to move in that direction. And if something doesn't feel well or right in my spirit and isn't serving me, then I move on. And when I move on from that thing, I always want to do it in a healthy way, whether that's a business relationship or anything. And I think also by having a purpose, in terms of a show like Dear White People, it's centered on activism. My character is centered on that. And by me having a desire to speak out against things like police brutality and just helping to have all of us educate each other about our cultures, in my own life, it just appeared in my work life. So for me personally, I have never sought out to brand myself. For me, that feels like control, and it feels like almost like a servitude that I don't want. I want to feel like a human in all of my efforts.
So your voice is more fluid.
Sure.
Teach us your ways.
No, I'm learning. And for me, I always, if I do have a brand, then part of my brand is not being afraid to be wrong.
Yes.
And so with that, I mean,
Amen.
Maybe one day I will think that I need to brand myself. And I'm okay with saying, right now I'm not sure, and maybe later I will change my mind.
Wonderful.
Something to say
Please.
to that as well. I think that what you're talking about is something that more of us can really learn from, which is alignment, which is where I feel now as well. That it isn't about creating something that isn't already there. It's about sort of letting who you are be true and saying no to things that aren't true to who you are and being authentic. And I think that was maybe the shift for me, was that being so public, I did for a while feel like there was something I had to be. Part of that, I think, is because I was 10 years older than the character I was playing.
Interesting.
And so I felt very disconnected, because here I was 25 playing a 16-year-old and feeling like a fraud in some senses. And
Imposter syndrome.
Yeah, total imposter syndrome. And then it became really popular, and then I felt even more fraudulent and scared. Like, oh my God, they're gonna find out.
Lonely at the top, so they say, right?
Yeah, it was like, oh my gosh, everyone's gonna find out. And little did I know, unbeknownst to me, that playing Taylor McKessie, being the smartest girl in school, was actually the doorway for me to, that was going to be the platform that I would stand on for youth empowerment, and that I was actually in the exact position that I was supposed to be in. And if I would have just allowed myself to be the grown-up in the situation and aligned to that, I probably would have come to it a lot sooner. So, I think
kind of owning it more.
So owning it.
Yeah.
But I just loved what you were saying as far as like just really aligning and allowing yourself to flow and allowing the things. I feel like more and more we don't have to do as much as we think we have to do. We have to be who we want to be. And when you are that, then the right and perfect things come to give you that voice, because I don't mean to be all frou-frou and namaste about it, but I feel like the universe wants us to thrive. These dreams were put into our heart because they were meant to come to fruition. These goals and these things, it only makes sense that you would have the platforms and the entry points that you would to be who we are ultimately called to be.
Absolutely. But Nastia, you had a bit of a different approach. You, as you were saying in your intro, kind of were born into it. So did you have that aha moment, or has it been as fluid for you?
Well, they didn't leave me with much to say because I totally like agree with everything they're saying. But along the lines of like obviously being an athlete and a gymnast, like yes, there's a certain brand, but I feel like also at the same time I've worked with managers that have almost like wanted to push me in a certain direction to kind of like create this brand that wasn't me. And I think I went turned professional. So in gymnastics, at least, you either are professional or you maintain your NCAA eligibility, and you can have a full ride scholarship to in college. And I made that decision when I was 12. First of all, what do we know when we're 12? Not much, but yeah. And so I feel like I just love gymnastics, and that was why I did it. But then because I was like so naive to like, I knew nothing about making gymnastics a career. It was just something I loved. Like I loved being on the balance beam and doing flips. Like I never thought like, let me be strategic about this and see where my brand is. And then, bringing on a team, it was kind of like pushing me to be like, this is what you should be. And I was like, but that's not who I am. So I think like, again, like totally believe in everything you guys said, and adding on to that, just staying true to yourself. I mean, I know that's so cliche and everybody says it, but it's like, it's so true, right? Because at the end of the day, like staying true to yourself, like that's thrown around, organic is thrown around, but it really is at the core so important to like work with brands or represent whatever it is, because it's you know, and I'm not an actress, so like I don't play anybody but me when I'm on TV or on a screen. And so it's even more, I feel like for me, that I have to kind of like stay true to myself and not really listen to like other people too much.
It's so interesting to have this conversation because I'm on the agency side, so I'm on the brand side. So I'm dealing with all people that are trying to get to you to represent them, right? So when we build brands out, you're so clear on what the voice is. There is really clear objectives in terms of the reach and the audience. So it's a very different approach than when you're on the persona side, right? Like you guys are.
So I have a question. So when you...
Wait. Isn't this supposed to be the other way around? Wait, what's happening
here?
here?
We can learn from each other. So when it comes to the branding of an individual, is it just companies or is it individuals as well?
We've done both, yeah.
So when it comes to an individual, or either or, do you pull from who or what they already are? Or do you find yourself like pulling a team together to create it more, or a mixture of both? It
has to be a mixture of both, because if it doesn't feel authentic, and I hate that word, I feel like it's so played. We need to can we come up with a new word for that? If it doesn't feel good to them, then they're never gonna run with whatever it is that we tell them to do. So it has to be somewhat authentic and organic to the brand, but then it also has to be aspirational, right? We have to talk about where they want to go with their brand and how we're gonna create a roadmap to get there. So it certainly has to be a little bit of both. Yeah. All right, back to you guys. Flipping the script on me. I love it. So you guys don't consider yourselves a brand, but you certainly have a clear voice.
I do, in a sense, though. I have to say that one thing for me is that flowing through life, I'm learning to do it more now that I'm more true to myself and authentic and aligned to those things. But it started by becoming intentional.
Okay.
Because I feel like a lot of things were put on me because people just assumed that I was younger than I am. There were a lot of assumptions that were made about me.
And you know what they say about assumptions, right?
Right. And also, people don't realize, but when you're in something, now 10 years later, it's this iconic, amazing thing. And at the time, it was as well. But at the time, I actually felt sixth. I felt last. Does that make sense? Like, I was a part of an ensemble, but I didn't feel like I felt like I was a part of something huge, but it wasn't actually doing anything for me.
Right.
And a lot of my insecurities came out being next to two girls that were 7 years, 10 years younger than me.
Excuse me, I'm 10 years older than any of them on the panel, so...
I love it. Well, you look amazing. But in this industry, it can be really tough. And I found that using social media to be intentional has helped me to define my own brand.
Right.
As the adult woman who's able to be the activist and all these other things, instead of, oh, she was a part of Disney, so that means whatever string of things people want to put on the end of that. So I just want to add that about being intentional.
I think that's exactly right on. And I think a lot of people in the audience and at the conference in general are struggling to find their voice. So what advice would you have in terms of finding that authentic voice and really making sure that you're staying true to who you are fundamentally?
I think passion is the number one thing, at least for me. And I think, again, not necessarily looking on Instagram or social media and seeing like who has the most followers and seeing what kind of content they're creating or whatever. Like, you have to do you. You know, you can't try to like copy someone else. And I kind of like take that back to gymnastics. So I was always like, always like very flexible and graceful and artistic, but I was never strong. I couldn't run as fast, jump as high as all the other gymnasts or my teammates, and it was just like, people always say like, there's no chance that you're gonna win that all-around gold medal because you can't jump as high, you don't have these difficult skills. And I was like, first you start to believe it, first of all, when everyone says it, and so then I kind of use my strengths to make up for that. And yeah, sure, I wasn't as strong, but I made up for it on the uneven bars, which was like my best event. And I made up ground for that. And so I think just like making like kind of like relating that to social media, which is like hard to do, but also, you know, trying to figure out like what it is, first of all, that you love and that your passions are, and not necessarily like what somebody else's passions are or whatever gets like the most following or the most whatever. Because at the end of the day, that's exhausting. You know, to create something and to do something or to spend time on something that you don't actually love, there's no way. Like for me, like I would have never competed at the Olympics if I didn't actually love it. I would have never competed if my parents actually pushed me to do it. Yeah. Like it really came from within.
Awesome. And it's interesting when we create brand voice as an agency, and maybe this is an exercise that you guys can use for those of you who are trying to find your voice. We do a whiteboard exercise where we write down all of the adjectives, all of the emotional responses you want your audience or your followers to feel when they interact with your brand. So it's a really great way to actually qualify who you want to be and what the voice of the brand should start to at least formulate and stand for. So that's kind of how we do it on the brand side.
And then how many do you erase, or do you keep them all up there?
It depends on how many there are. I would say typically we go through and we like circle the ones that really feel the most authentic, again, horrible word, but to the brand or the individual, and then we create the brand values from that. So it's a really interesting approach. I highly recommend everyone try it.
I liked Monique's word of alignment. I feel like
alignment.
That's another A word.
Yes.
That you can
Okay, let's replace that with alignment. So speaking of alignment, nice segue, thank you for that. How do you interact with your online audience? Because you guys have really big followings, and you have to be aligned with their vision and their voice as well. So do you have an approach to how you interact with them online?
It's changed for me over time, just because social media has changed. You have to continue to evolve with what's going on around you. At first, I was very hesitant to engage because I am already giving so much of myself to the public. I make that choice every day. Once you do make that choice, you don't get it back. So I'm already giving myself to everyone. When people engage with me on my social media at a certain point, I felt like if I would respond too much, they felt even more ownership of me, and therefore would either judge me more harshly or be more offended by any of my choices. And I felt like that was not conducive to a positive interaction on either of our parts, you know? So I feel like I've kind of taken a bit of a step back in terms of my online interaction, where I maybe in a caption, I will share how grateful I am and that I love the feedback, or I'll heart something on a Twitter, but I won't always go back and forth with people. In opposition to that, in person, I will always, interact with someone and have a long dialogue about anything they want to talk about. But for me, it's been kind of a balance. Like, I want people to feel like welcome in my space. I want it to feel like, if you were coming to my house, I want you to feel welcome. And so I end up blocking anything negative. I say block game strong. And so anything negative in my universe, I just block it so that people who are even interacting on my page, I just want them to feel like there's a positive, safe space.
Awesome.
What was the question?
How do you interact and bring your voice?
I got captivated. I was just like, no, I totally got captivated. And it's funny because I follow your stories, and you don't have it where you can comment. And I always want to be like, Logan, which is fine, and it's totally wonderful, and you probably shouldn't change that.
But you did it in person, and
but
that's what she actually wanted was the
No,
IRL,
totally,
right?
exactly. No, but I just got totally captivated and like lost my mind. For me, I do engage with my audience. It's interesting. I have this sort of presence that makes young people feel like they can tell me their problems. And it's a sort of an interesting responsibility, yeah, because I do have to sort of play a balancing act with what I respond to, what I don't. I don't tell people happy birthday anymore, because then the other people get mad. But I have actually direct messaged a lot of young people in response and kind of said, you know, I hear and I understand that you're hurting. I understand, you know, this is not the best place for this, but I feel like if that's where you went, and I'm who you went to share something, then I imagine there may not be a lot of people in your life that are there for you. And the reality is that, you know, young people do take their lives. People are lonelier than we think they are, you know, and people are presenting themselves on these social platforms in such a way that, for me, so when I hear a cry, I do take it seriously. And I don't know why that comes to me, but it does. And so I that is one way that I do engage, is I will like send you a personal note and a message and let you know, like, hey, you know, I can't keep hanging out here, but, you know, these are some resources. This is some place that you should go.
So you feel very responsible for your audience. That's
an
interesting approach.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't, yeah, and it's honestly just because of the kinds of comments that appear on my page. And also I post a lot of quotes because I'm a quotes person. You asked for advice earlier as well. And I think that's part of it too, is I don't post or judge what I'm doing based on who likes it or doesn't like it. That one person that needed that message that day is enough.
I love that.
You know, that one person that's impacted or affected. And I think nowadays we are sometimes afraid to fail and afraid to learn new things. It's like, oh, this works. This is my good angle. I only want to take pictures from this side. This is, you know, you do. That's okay.
I don't think anyone on the panel has a bad angle. So
That's okay. That's okay. We can have those things, but we can't have that with everything. You know what I mean? And so now on my Insta stories, I have actually been using it as like a way to kind of become a better filmmaker. They're not like so amazing or anything, but I've been trying to use it as an opportunity to kind of curate something. I've been like, you know what? No, I can't post that picture yet because that doesn't tell the story. And I try to tell the story in as few images as possible. So for me, it's a play. It's like you get to come into my life, so then I get to do something on the other side that works for me as well. Because I'm very private also, and I don't like to let people in. My husband gets mad when he finds pictures of himself on Instagram.
Mine does too. Same
like
thing.
so annoyed. He's
I'll
like,
get my
funny.
Snapchat out. He's like, I don't want to be on your Snapchat.
yeah. So he usually has a dog. My dog's 95 pounds, so usually my dog is covering him. But you know, I do want people to know that like I have a real life. And
Awesome. So all of you on the panel really use your voice to do social good. Can you guys tell us more about the nonprofits and the work that you're doing in that space? Because I think that is a really important conversation. You know, as I said, I represent a lot of brands, but we do a lot in the nonprofit world. I think if you have a voice and you have a following, it's important to do social good with it. So can you speak a little bit to that?
No, I totally agree. I mean, I think, you know, obviously we were given that platform, and for me as a gymnast, obviously, like I worked my whole career to achieve that, but with that, I agree, it comes responsibility. And so ever since I was 12 years old, like I remember my dad always, who was my coach, he always kind of told me, you know, people are always watching you, and you don't have to live your life in a way of like be on like pins and needles all the time, but you know, like people are looking up to you. People want to be like you. People want to be gymnasts like you and whatnot. And so I feel like it's extremely important, and I know people are watching, but at the same time, it's become this like natural feeling where I don't really think about it and I want to give back. And so I think, you know, especially in the gymnastics world, I have 20 years of knowledge that I just like have like created, I guess, over time. And I can't do anything with that now because I don't train or compete anymore. And so why not give that back to the next generation? And so that's kind of what I'm doing with, I created an app, and right now it's really focused on the gymnastics community, but we're going to go across all different sports on the female side, just because it's so crazy. But you know, when you look at the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, like it's so oversaturated with so much content. And on the women's side, like where do you go? You know,
What's
it's
the name
like,
of the app? Let us know.
it's called Grander. So to be grand, to be the best that you can possibly be. And then it connects, you know, the next generation with the mentors, such as myself and some of my other Olympic teammates as well, just because, like social media, you know, it's like, yeah, you can like something, you can retweet something, you could direct respond sometimes, but it's not necessarily always that platform to do so. And so this is really giving that more like intimate chance to be able to communicate with your mentors and ask them questions. And, you know, I mean, it's anything from, I'm so afraid to do this skill, or I'm having a mental block, like, can you help me out? And it's like, actually, I had a mental block too. And they're like, wow, but you won the Olympics. There's no way that you had a mental block, you know? And it's like, I'm real too. And I think that's why Instagram is so hard sometimes, because our life is perceived as perfect. And, you know, when I meet these kids and I'm just like them, they're like, oh, okay, so you're real. You've had mental blocks. You cry. You have bad days, you know? And I'm like, yes, you know, it's obviously not on my Instagram page because we put up what we want people to see, but I think it's so important to be real in times of real life. So I kind of like went off a little bit, but...
I would like each of you to talk. I mean, you guys are doing so much important work. I think it's important to share.
I feel like when I started, I was like afraid to work with too many organizations, because I think it was a different time where it was kind of like, I didn't want anyone to think that I was doing it for attention, which is so odd to think that anyone would even think that. Yeah, like I would be like, oh, I don't want people to think that I'm just, you know, trying to get attention by using these organizations. And
well, to be fair, publicists do push you guys in those directions all the time.
True.
Right?
But then I realized, like, this is authentic to me, and I can't support enough people. And you know what? Not enough people are doing it, so I'm going to go everywhere and do everything. And so for me, it's having found the through line. And so the through line is youth empowerment, girls' education, peace, education. Those are kind of, and so I support a lot of different organizations in different capacities. Some organizations I donate to, some organizations I volunteer for, some organizations I'll just use my social media. Some of those organizations are Thirst Project, which is a youth-led water organization. They're incredible. She's the First, which is helps girls be the first in their family to graduate high school in developing countries. DoSomething.org. The list goes on, and it serves me. I mean, it fuels me. Like it's what I love, and I love interacting with all these different organizations and then being able to bring people to other organizations. And when I meet someone and they say, I want to get involved with something, I'm like, what are you into? Mm-hmm. To what capacity? I've got a list of different organizations that I'm sure would love to benefit from you. So I let kind of being a connector be my thing, and helping in whatever capacity that really feels right. And it just happens to be a pretty long list of organizations because I really love young people.
That's awesome. And your work?
And don't you have your own?
Yeah, I do, but it's kind of shifting. So I have, thank you. You're hilarious. She's like, and what about? Yes, so I started Gimme Mo in 2009 or 10. And I never raised $1. I only used my own money. And I used a lot of my own money. And that's because I didn't have a nonprofit background. I never went to business school. And anyone who thinks that a nonprofit isn't a business, like it 100% is. And you need to know just as much about business as you do anything else if you're going to have one. But I was scared, to be honest. I was scared. I didn't want anyone to look me up on something and see that I was misusing the money. I didn't want to use it for my family. And so that trip, the reason why I tell people that I funded it is because I did. It's the Gimme Mo tour where I was traveling around the world, but I did fund it myself because I wanted to understand and know what I was doing. That being said, moving forward, I wouldn't start a charity personally, and I would probably talk most people out of starting a charity specifically, and create a brand or create a business that does social good. So a B corporation. So that's ultimately kind of where I'm moving into.
I totally agree with that. I think there are so many people that have great ideas, but there are already so many nonprofits out there that do the work. Yes. I really believe that we need to aggregate all the nonprofits that are out there into more structured, so that there's just like a splintering of people doing the work, in my opinion.
Absolutely, yeah. And so instead of sort of Gimme Mo it still exists because there's so many amazing young people that found me through that, but it eventually will evolve, and I don't know what it's going to be, but it'll turn into something.
I love that. I love like hearing about your journey in terms of you have a passion to help and you tried this thing because you're so passionate and you found that that just was not the way for you, but you also learned so much through it and still did so much through it and now can share with other people.
Part of her journey.
It's brilliant. Like,
So tell us about the work that you're doing.
Okay. So I'm in a space right now where I similar to Mo, I just don't want to be like party hopping charities, but I also am drawn to a lot. Yeah. So I've kind of found myself working with the Step Up Network.
Love Step Up. They're doing great things.
I love, and I keep missing opportunities to just tutor. I want to be more hands-on. That's kind of my personal desires. Is helping young women to go to school and also to be young business women. I feel like I love the arts and I support the arts, and anyone who wants to be in the arts truly has a passion for it. I will support your dream, but I also feel, especially within African American communities, everyone goes entertainment, sports, music, instead of thinking STEM and business, and I want to promote that more in that community and in our gender community. So Step Up Network, and then I did a panel with Soledad O'Brien. She has something called Powerful, and that was really, really special. And I'm kind of looking for. I'm in this space where I'm just trying to find that thing. I've gone to a lot of. I have party hopped and gone to a lot of events, and I'm trying to find that one thing that I feel like I'm aligned with and I can help. Until I find that, I do support. Any donating and to any cause that I. The white helmets and any, for instance, for Christmas, instead of giving people stocking stuffers, it's a good idea to donate to something in their name and put that in their stocking. And
a great idea.
Things like that.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely.
I did. I thought of one for you. Yeah,
We.
We movement. Do you know We?
Oh, I love We. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you been on their stage?
No.
I think we need to make that
I think
connection.
Mo can connect you.
Yeah.
I think she can
Okay,
connect you. So using your voice, you guys, again, have really big followings. How can other people get involved with these kinds of organizations without having millions of followers?
Well, I think that's like easy to donate. It's find something that you're passionate about, find an organization that means something to you. And I absolutely guarantee you'll find one, and it's like if you're not inclined to like a certain one, Christmas is obviously, or the holidays are obviously such a great idea. Going into, one of my favorites is just going into a local children's hospital and just bringing in a bunch of toys. I mean, it's so simple. Literally go to Toys R Us or any toy store, stuffed animals, anything, and just go in there and you just see the children's like eyes light up, and it just does so much for you. And my fiance and I, we kind of decided like we're not doing the whole Christmas gifts anymore, and that's what we're gonna do, is really just give back and visit children's hospitals around the holidays. And there's only so many Christmas birthday presents you can buy each other until you're just like, I don't know what to get you anymore. And so yeah, I just feel like that's obviously really easy, but if you want to get more involved, there's, I'm sure you could tell us.
Well, I was going to say too, we can't, there was a world before social media. It's like very hard to remember that world, but it did exist. And I think that
I remember.
I remember that world. Like, yeah, and dial-up and rabbit ears.
I wasn't that old.
Huh?
I don't remember that.
Oh, I had dial-up.
I'm totally kidding.
Oh, I know you had dial-up. Don't be playing games. But we have to remember that heart-to-heart connection, like how Logan approaches her social media, that's the way that we can move through the world. And we can, we can't devalue people because they aren't popular, or you know what I mean? Like, we can't base what we think we're able to do based on what our online presence is. You have value, you have a skill set, you know, whether it be your local hospital, your schools, whatever your interests are, you can contribute even to your high school. If there's a program that you felt was missing or really could have benefited you if you would have had it, we have to start being a little bit more creative and personable and one-on-one, and not just looking for kind of the appearance of impact, but the actual substance of impact.
I love that. Well, speaking of substance, we've been having such a great conversation on the stage, but I want to now open it up to the audience. I mean, this is a powerhouse panel. You guys must have questions. Don't be shy. I will call you out. Yes, on the left-hand side. Do we have a mic to pass around, possibly?
We could use this one and share.
Yeah, we can share one.
Perfect.
Those shoes are cute too, girl.
Yes, love the shoes.
Thank you. They're from Just Fab, which is out there. So thank you guys so much. This has been really, I think, just gratifying for me to hear because it's a style conference, but we started the day talking with Ashley about how she's working to combat sex trafficking, and here we are talking about, paving the way for a new generation. So that's been really, really cool to experience. So Mo, you had said something that our gifts make space for us, and that really stuck with me. What do you see? I have 2 young daughters. So what do you see from your interactions with youth that are hurting and youth that are trying to figure it out? What do you see as the most pressing issue facing our young girls today?
I think, honestly, what you just said is the lack of confidence. So as someone who's traveled to date to a little over 40 countries, so I've slept at refugee camps, I've run the whole gamut from the wealthiest to having nothing. And I find that if a lack of confidence, a lack of self-esteem, and that seems like, are you kidding me? What about clean drinking water? What about these other things? I actually was talking to someone who is a first responder when a national disaster happens, so a tsunami or something like that. And he said, what do you think the first thing that people want? What do you think they're looking for? And I'm like, their family. And he was like, Wi-Fi. People want to, and I was like, Wi-Fi? You mean to tell me you almost drowned and you're looking for Wi-Fi? Yeah, because people want to connect. And I think that when I look around and I see these young people, it's the ones that don't have a sense of value, that don't have a sense of self-esteem or self-worth, that are in a far worse situation oftentimes than someone who's living in a village who has every dream and aspiration in the world and believes that they can do something, and then you come back and then they do. Right. So I think that one of the things that we can do then is help them to help instill a sense of purpose, to help them understand that their dreams are not they're not imaginary, that these dreams are, that they're information, that there's something there, and then to support them in achieving those dreams, whatever, no matter how crazy or silly they may seem, and getting into service, period. Like, there's whether it be I Am That Girl, She's the First, Girl Up, any of those, they have groups that you can start at the school. So you start a club, and even if that's not your thing, it doesn't matter. It's the beginning of that thing. It teaches you community, it teaches you how to fundraise, and then from that point on, I think the biggest thing is getting out of the mirror. For young girls, we spend so much time in the mirror looking at ourselves that if you get out of that and get into service, then I feel like that creates that balance and that sense of confidence that will never come anywhere else.
So true. Thank you for the question. In the back. Everybody looks so fabulous. All the outfits are so fantastic.
Well, you guys said dress to impress, so yeah. Hi guys. So I'm gonna get out of this steam. Sorry, it's like blowing my face.
The Beyonce wing going.
Yeah.
Ooh, go ahead.
Just kidding.
Feel yourself. We love it.
Hi guys. My name is Sharita. So I run a lifestyle site. It's food, fashion, but also finance. I have a degree in finance. I try to teach financial literacy to women. And a girlfriend of mine, Maureen, who's here, she runs a media company as well. So we try to do a speaking event to kind of help empower women who are business owners. And it's so hard when you're starting out, you don't have a huge million following, to get these sponsorship for these events that you're trying to throw, spaces. Like, how can us micro influencers really find a space to, help the community when we're really just trying to volunteer our time, when we don't have the resources to book a venue, to offer refreshments, so those kinds of.
So I can actually answer that.
Okay.
We actually have our own networking group called the Taste Salon, and we birthed it for that reason and in that way. And really, it's about who are you connected to, who can you ask for support, and all of the sponsors here have a similar audience to you. So think about who is an ancillary non-competitive brand that you could reach out to that can sponsor with product. Product is the first step.
I emailed about
right?
40 different companies, and the most eloquent email I could find.
And you got no response.
Well,
did you email them more than once?
Yeah, no, I got responses, but it was thank you. Your event's too small. We've reached our quota. This was like back in April. I'm like,
but did you have any personal relationships with? So for us and for people who are just starting out, I would say start with your relationships. Start with who you know, and I'm sure that you thought about these brands, right? But maybe you need to start smaller with the relationships you already have in your community and in your world. So maybe someone that's local that needs more exposure to that community.
No, that makes sense. I just moved it from New York, so my community is like this big here.
Call me, girl. We can hook you up.
Okay,
Don't worry.
I will give you my card after that. All right, thank you.
Yes, right here. Oh, Taste Salon. Just elevatemybrand.com. Email us. We'll connect you all. Everyone. Yes. So that wasn't a question. Kind of ish. Anyone else?
Oh.
Any other questions from the audience?
I have
and
a
all
question.
in the far back.
All far back too.
Hi, thanks.
Hi.
I was just wondering, it may be a little cheesy, I don't know, but what do y'all feel about the hashtagging? Because some people love hashtagging, and the lady over there, Jasmine, said, oh, you're in sales, and so just get over it and make sure you're, we're in sales, so we have to focus on that's what we're doing. So some people like the hashtagging, some people don't like the hashtagging. They're like anti-hashtagging. What do y'all think about hashtagging?
It's different on the brand side than the personal side. On the brand side, it's absolutely critical to be tracking, right? You have to prove ROI to the brands you work with, and hashtag tracking is one of those things. Also, to be able to talk to audience that's talking about what you're trying to reach, hashtagging is absolutely critical. On the personal side, I'd let you guys answer that one.
And I truly think that on the personal side, it's the same. So I think right now we're in a space in terms of sales and marketing where you don't want to feel pushed. No one ever wants to feel like anything is being pushed in their face. And so that may mean if you have, your brand has the social media, your caption has no hashtags or one hashtag, but then on your comments, you have the 30 hashtags. You know what I mean? Not 30, but maybe 5. Because I will say personally, as an artist, when I'm looking for a certain kind of a satin dress, or I'm looking for a stylist, I will go to tags and type in satin dress, sleep shirt, chic pant. I will type in the hashtags, and it connects me to those brands. So I do think hashtags are important, and if you don't do them, then you almost don't exist.
You're doing yourself a disservice,
Yeah.
really. Yeah.
Yeah, and this question is for the personal one, not the branding
She's
one.
saying that she feels the same way, that it's one and the same.
Cool.
But a good question. Actually, I've seen on Instagram, some people are actually putting hashtags up and shrinking them so tiny that you can't actually see them on the page, and stuffing their Insta stories with those hashtags. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I hide hashtags in my Insta stories all the time. Yeah,
It's a
I
nice
make it
little
the
trick. There
same
you guys
color
go. You got your money's worth.
as the background. Yeah, I think it just has to do with being intentional and not limiting yourself. Just try, see how you feel. But I think whatever we ultimately want is what we're going to get. So if you're afraid to do it, then you're not going to be met with the positive impact of that. And if you
100%.
just think, you know what, I'm just going to put it out there, what's the worst that can happen?
Absolutely.
Your friends will hate you or unfollow you.
Yeah, but then they're not really your friends.
Exactly.
So you should
Haters gonna
unfollow
hate.
them.
And it's also like talk about brand, but it is like what is your aura and your personal vibe? Like for me, I personally don't put 30 hashtags, but my friends who do, I find it hilarious because they put the ones that are actually important. Like they'll tag where they are, they'll tag what city they're in, they'll tag what they're wearing, but they'll also be like hashtag way too hot in LA. You know what I mean? So I'm entertained and I'm not offended.
Awesome. Any other final questions for this fabulous audience? I have one last question, if you don't mind. Can you define your voice in one word? Not to put you all on the spot or anything. Your voice.
I mean, inspirational, but that's
It's a good
so
one.
like.
What did you say?
Did I steal
Inspirational?
it? Well, inspirational, but I mean also like. I'm not saying like I'm like such an inspirational person. I don't know, like
A gold medal
maybe
winner.
to
I
certain
think she's
people,
kind of
but
inspirational, just a little bit.
but like
okay, so
I
inspirational.
like maybe like Want to inspire. That's
Got
not
it.
one word.
Aspirational inspiration. Okay. Monique?
I think compassionate.
Last but not least.
What you gonna say, Logan?
No, I'm kidding.
I would say human, because I know that I'm in the public eye and I know I'm a celebrity to some people, but I make it my goal to always try to be approachable and try to be relatable and to try to, I would say approachable, but I like human more because it shows you that even if you see me on see human, make mistakes. It's all encompassing if I say human, and in terms of it making me relatable, I just feel like it raises everyone else's, imaginary ceiling. It reminds me to be humble, and it just levels us all where you're not putting people on a pedestal and idolizing other humans. It reminds you that we're all the same.
I love that. Well, my word is elevated, and this panel has certainly elevated our spirits today. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for participating, and have a fabulous rest of the day here at Simply LA.